You've actually got a personal brand, whether you think about it or not. That's the thing, because a personal brand is what people think of you and what your reputation is and what you stand for. And people are going to make their own minds up about that unless you intentionally shape those views, just like with a business brand. It doesn't matter whether you do something about it or not, you've got one anyway. So wouldn't you like to be able to be in control of that? Or would you just want to leave that to the lap of the gods?
For too long, talented experts with a service-based business like coaches, consultants, and freelancers have been losing out to the often inferior competition, and for just one reason. They struggle to communicate the true value of what they offer. And on this show, I share with you the art of value whispering, which is getting to know your true value, then weaving this through every interaction that you have so you naturally stand apart from your competitors, feel aligned in everything that you do, and have an impact that matters and you feel proud of. Now, one key way you can weave your value through your work is through your brand. But do you need to have a company brand or a personal brand or both? It's a big question for a lot of business owners. And so I wanted to discuss that on the show, and I couldn't think of anyone better to invite than my own brand consultant and expert, Sapna Pieroux. She first came on the show in episode 50, talking about a company brand and sharing her vision framework. So do go back and listen to that episode. And she also came on the show on episode 127, which was the breast cancer special. She generously shared her personal story along with two other cancer survivors and a doctor who actually shared some really encouraging and inspiring advice for everyone out there. So another episode I can highly recommend. But before you go and listen to those, do listen to Sapna's advice on using your personal brand to grow your business. And as always, I would love to invite you to join us in the Dream Clients Club. Right now, with it being summer, we have taken a pause on the usual weekly masterclasses, and instead we've replaced it with Summer Business School. And this year's focus is all about mindset. If you go to melittacampbell.com/summer24, you will find all the details of this one-off course that you can follow this summer. Everything is broken down into nice beach-friendly bite-sized pieces, so you can work on your mindset and really get yourself ready to excel through the last half of the year in a way that feels authentic, comfortable, and right for you. So you're going to look at how you can build your confidence, get rid of a lot of your doubts, fears, imposter syndrome that can hold us back. And you're going to start creating the habits, behaviors, and environment that's going to support your success now and into the future. So do come and join us at melittacampbell.com/summer24. Meantime, here's Sapna. Hi, Sapna. It's great to have you with us today.
Hi, Melitta. Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And well, it's welcome back, really, because you were on episode 50 talking about the importance of brand for your business. And now you're back talking about the importance of personal branding and what's the difference. Do you need one in your business? How the two work together. We're going to dive into all of that because I know there's a lot of questions around that. Do I brand me or my business? Are they the same? Are they different? And when do you know? So we'll dive into that. But before we do, I would love it if you could remind the audience who you are and how did you get to become a brand consultant?
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I'm Sapna Pieroux, brand consultant, author, speaker, and also the Yes Girl. That's a whole other story. But I started off studying design and then I did a postgrad in marketing. So I did the usual sort of designer route, but I felt that the marketing would give me a little bit of USP. And then I, by accident, fell into media. So it was like actually radio, the least visual medium you can come across. And I spent a total of about 20 years going, working around media, working in advertising, working in marketing for radio, TV, online events, magazines and press. So I've worked for brands like EMap and Chrysalis Radio and Telegraph Media Group, working with those kind of big media brands and helping global brands like Mercedes or, Rimmel with amplifying their brands. So it's always been about amplifying company brands. And then I kind of started my own business about 8 years ago, post kids. And suddenly you're not, you can't hide behind a brand because it's you. But I kind of still did. I had, a company brand, and I was hoping that the work would speak for itself. And so I always thought, oh, the business brand is more important than I am. But actually, that's not how it's all panned out over the last few years. And the whole personal brand thing has really grown. And so there's been a bit of an organic journey, but I'm now helping entrepreneurial businesses to grow faster, to stand out in their industry, but working on their business and their personal brands. And we can do either or we can work it in parallel.
Yeah, brilliant journey. And it's funny, isn't it, how we say it all the time on the show, where you start is never where you end up, because you start to learn more about yourself and what you're capable of doing. You start to dream bigger, and also you grow along with your clients as well. Once they start to really understand what it is that you do, they start to tell you, well, can you help me with this? And can you use those skills in this direction? And then we have that choice to say yes or no, or well, let's see how that feels for me. So I think working on personal brands, given your background in business branding and just how good you are at that, but also the fact you've got this vision framework. When I was reading it, I was like, yeah, I can see how that would work just as well with a personal brand. And I think it's the same process, isn't it? Really understanding what your essence is. What are you all about? What do you stand for in the world? And then bringing that intentionally into the world so people get it, and adding some visual into that so it really amplifies, as you say, that message. But let's start with, what do you define a brand is?
So brand as a general concept gives people a point of differentiation, right? There are a million marketing experts in the world. There are a million brand consultants in the world. I haven't actually counted them, but there are lots of people out there, and it's hard for people to choose. And so brand is giving people a way of choosing. And so that is very much aligned with things like your values. If you feel that you share values with the person that is there in front of you as a choice, then you're going to feel more aligned. It's going to be, a way of not only choosing somebody who's going to help you, but also a way of filtering out clients as well, and standing for something. So if you stand for something or you stand against something, that is also part of brand. So it's about that. It's setting the intention. It's the vision of what you want your brand to be and what you want it to stand for. It's the reputation that you want to build with your target audience. It's the aspiration, what kind of legacy do you want to leave as well? And then it's things like the values, it's the brand personality and the brand voice. So how is this brand going to feel? How is it going to make an emotional connection? And so, because everybody buys first with, it's a heart and a mind purchase. You need to get people's hearts and minds. And so making that emotional connection is really, really important before you start thinking about colors and fonts and logos. I mean, that's kind of quite far on in the process, but a lot of people kind of think, well, I've started a business, I better get a logo. And they'll just go straight to that without actually working out what it is they stand for and how they're going to stand out. Because as I say, there's just too many generic services out there. So it's about making that connection.
Yeah, I love that. And, I talk very often how communication isn't about pushing information out there. It's about how people interact with that. What does it mean to them? How do they perceive it? And how do you therefore create a connection and help people take that next step in the relationship? And the brand absolutely supports that. So if that's what a brand is, what do you see as the role of a brand for a business versus for a personal brand? Is it the same role, or are there distinct differences, do you think?
So, yeah, that's a really interesting question, because for a lot of the people that I work with, it is founder-led businesses. And so the lines do get quite blurred. Am I working on their company brand? If it's Melitta Campbell, is that you, the person that we're working on your brand for? Is it Melitta Campbell, the company? and you're so intertwined. It's actually, it's actually quite difficult. If you've got a company name, it's a little bit more sort of stand apart, where it's like, well, I've got a company called InnerVisions ID, and that's got its own brand. And then there's me, Sapna Pieroux, and I've got my personal brand as the head of that. And that works quite well if you've got a team as well who are also representing your brand. But ultimately, the personal brand, I mean, people ask me, is it more important to work on my company brand or more important to work on my personal brand? And actually, it's both. Of course, I'd say that. But if you think about Richard Branson, for example, he's got like several million followers on Instagram, but Virgin has only got, I think it's 200 plus thousand followers. So the personal connection is still more important. If you've got a LinkedIn profile with your face on it and a company page, people interact with you yourself much, much more than they will your company page. Ultimately, people buy people. So it's really important for business owners to step out of the shadows and stop hiding behind their brand, as I used to, by the way. I felt, because I'd worked in corporate before, that the brand was, and I worked for these big brands like the Telegraph or like Kiss or whatever. And so those brands were door openers. Just if you call someone up and you said, hi, I'm calling from the Telegraph. In fact, you didn't even need to call people up. The briefs would just fly in through the window because of the power of the company brand. But when you're running your own business and you don't have that massive decades of brand behind you and the budgets, the personal connection is the thing where you can make the most cut through. You're definitely the most unique thing about your business, the most unreplicable part of your business. There'll be copycats come and go, and they might steal your methodology, or they might steal some content from your slide decks, but they'll never deliver it just like you. So the personal brand is increasingly, especially in this AI kind of driven world that we're living in right now, I feel that the personal connection is going to become more and more important to make that cut through and to continue to make that connection.
Yeah. So say you're a founder and you have your small business, and maybe the business is like me. Let's take my example, Melitta Campbell. That's my business, but it's also me. I struggled. It's so funny. You'd think that I just came up with that name, but it took me months to come up with the name. I was trying, like, what's unique? What could I use as a name that's different? And then someone asked me something. I said, oh, just Google Melitta Campbell. I'm the only one. I thought, oh. So, but how would you go about that? Would you do the business brand first and then the personal brand, or the other way around? Or do you have any thoughts on what order? Or is it a case of coming to someone like yourself and discussing your goals and your purpose and then deciding the best approach for that?
Exactly. I mean, it depends on where you want to be. So whenever I work with a client, I was sort of saying, where are you now and where do you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years? And we build the brand for that future vision. So if I've worked with sales coaches, for example, who are trying to build a business that they then want to bring associate coaches in with, it makes more sense for them to have a corporate name that they can then umbrella everybody under, and they can still be the founder of it and they can still be the face of it. It also matters with who your target clients are. So for you, Melitta, you work with individuals and business owners and business founders. So arguably it is B2B, but you're not working with corporates.
Yeah.
If you're working with corporates, it does look more professional and it looks like you've got a bigger company if you go in with the company brand and then you be the founder of it, even if it's only you at the beginning. It kind of just feels bigger. So it is a bit of perception becoming reality. If you want to connect with people on a more one-to-one basis, then yes, going ahead with your name. But I would do a much deeper dive and work out what it is that you're trying to achieve before we make that decision, and then lead with that one first.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your vision process. You went through that in episode 50 when we were talking about business brand, but can you run us through how that might be applied to a personal brand so people can start to think a little bit about what that represents?
Yeah, it was interesting because, say, I've done 30 years working with company brands, 20 in corporate and 8, kind of with my own business, taking a few years out for child rearing when they were little. But so I wrote the vision process for business brands. And when I got asked, I was over the last, just really this year, where people have been coming to me, and I had 4 different female entrepreneurs come to me saying, I don't need a rebrand. I want you to help me with my personal, can you help me with my personal brand? And I was a bit, there was this element of, are they talking to the right person? Should this be me? And then my publisher was like laughing, going, no, you've managed to build a really strong personal brand. It's that clarity, it's what you stand for. People know what you do. They get a sense of your personality from the content you're putting out there and how you show up. You know, it was all very positive things, and people wanted a guide to that. So then I started trying to come up with, I said to my business coach, I was like, I need to come up with a funky acronym for what I do. And he went, well, why don't you just do the vision process? And I was like, oh, you're quite good. And I looked at it, and actually the V and the I are identical. So, you know, the root of it, and I would say the VIS is kind of like the strategy part of the process. And then the ION is where we start to get visual and start to design and start to kind of show up. So VIS, it stands for visualize, inner brand, and stand out. And the V and the I are identical. So we look at brand aspirations, your fab brands. Now, when we look at the company brand, we look at which 5 companies do I aspire to be like. Now, for personal brand, I'd say, well, which, you know, people out there, which personal brands do you aspire to be like? And that's not about copying them. It's like, it's about identifying what makes them stand out, what draws you to them, what they stand for, what they stand against, what their values are, why you feel connected with them, and why you want to make that kind of connection with your audience. It stops people thinking about, you know, it starts you thinking about brand in a much bigger way and about that real emotional connection. And so we kind of go through these 5 aspirational brands and kind of pick them apart and go, well, what's the most important things you want to bring into your own brand and why? Then we look at the you know, what I'd said before, the company vision or the personal brand vision. So where you are now, where you'd like to be in the next 3 to 5 years. Then we look at the customer vision, which is where the customer is now and where they would like to be. Why are they going to connect with you? Why are they going to want to work with you? Why are they going to recommend you? What's the legacy you want to leave them with? What's the transformation? What do you want to be known for amongst your target market? So we really, you know, dig down into all of that. And all of that helps us with the messaging that comes later. And then we look at inner brand, which again, identical with the business, but now we look at it from a personal point of view. So we hone in on an average of 5 values. We don't want too many because it becomes too difficult to communicate. So between 3 and 7, but 5's a good number to aim for. And these are the values that are going to differentiate you from your peers, from other people in your industry. So it's kind of not enough to say, well, honesty is one of my values, or professionalism is one of my values, or I give a quality service, because hands up, who would say that they're not professional and they don't offer, you know, quality service? So it's about what's the thing that's going to make people remember you. For me, certainly building the company brand business, being able to brand a business in a day is a point of difference. And people go, wow, you know, you can do that. And it makes them remember you. It makes them talk about you, makes them refer you. So that was my thing. So it's about finding what are the values that are really going to help you stand out. And then we also look at the brand personality and the brand voice. Obviously, if it's your personality and it's your, you know, we're working on your personal brand, that's going to be very, very much you. But it's about honing that professional, intentional side of you, because the you in front of your children or with your children or with your partner, with your friends, is very different, I'd imagine, to the you with your clients. So it's about taking away all those other bits and just finding the bits that are really going to resonate for your clients, and honing in on that, which really helps when you're writing copy, when you're showing up on video, when you're giving anything to a copywriter, or, you know, somebody's building your website. And then, you know, the brand voice part comes out of that. What kind of language would Melitta use? What kind of language would Melitta not use? Yours is not a very sweary brand, neither's mine, but some people might be a little bit more bold with their use of vocabulary, say. So it's about honing in on that and what kind of words resonate for you and your target market. So those two are very similar. Then when we move to S for standout, When I'm working with businesses, it's more about, well, kind of we look at the branding. But for when we're working with a person with a personal brand, it's about how you show up and what you're going to, what's going to make you stand out. So we start looking at things like credit. This is not visual. This is actually your creds. What are we going to hone in on? Things like awards and achievements. And if you haven't won awards, then it's something where we'll put a strategy together for the right awards for you to approach. So I've got kind of a plan for that as well. But it's about emphasizing your creds and your credibility in order to help you stand out. So that's the standout part of and there's quite a lot to that. And then it's kind of like what you're going to be standing for when you are showing up online as well. So it's about the kind of content that you'll be putting out there. So it's kind of looking at that. I worked with a fantastic social media coach actually called Sam Barefoot, and she is quite sweary. She's absolutely hilarious. She's massive on TikTok and Instagram, which are not my platforms at all, but I followed her just for fun. And then I was like, I just want to be a little bit more Sam, actually. What she stands for comes across really clearly. She's really confident, and I wasn't as confident even though I appear to be confident, I wasn't as confident as she was. And I wanted to be a little bit more Sam. And one of the things that she taught me about was the content cake. And so sort of like coach my clients through the content cake. And the content cake is like 3 different layers. And one of them is like where you're showing up and showing off your expertise and your thought leadership pieces and, kind of advice and tips and all that stuff that really well. The other part of the content cake is your personal stuff. So it's the making that personal connection. So it's sharing parts of your story, your brand story, your origin story, making that personal, a little bit behind the scenes maybe. And by the way, you don't have to be showing off pictures of your kids. You don't have to post pictures of your kids in order to build a personal brand. That's not what it's about. But it's making people realize, kind of what your why is, what fires you up, and what you love about the work that you do. So it's a little bit behind the scenes. And then the other bit is what she calls the wild card. And these are things which you can put out there that may be a little bit topical or a little bit controversial and maybe encourage debate, but also will help you find your tribe. So, for example, what might really get you angry or what really pisses you off, about your industry, and those things that you can get really passionate about. So, it is a little bit neck on the line here, sticking your neck out, but it's the thing that's going to help you connect deeply with the right people. So those 3 pillars are kind of what she built her content on. And I found that really quite helpful with starting to build a personal brand, because I think I was focusing mainly on just the professional side. And you have to put a little bit of these other 2 things in there to kind of fully round out you as a persona. So we do that on the standout. And then when we go to image, yes, we're talking about how you show up as a person in terms of what you look like, but also, so I've got partnerships with a brand photographer, a brand stylist, and a brand videographer. So we can actually put the whole package together. I can give you the strategy and help you with some of the graphics, say on your LinkedIn header and things like that. But also we make sure that all of those visual touch points are looking. And also we talk about things like what's in your Zoom room. So when you're showing up on camera, and then also how you might show up in real life as well. So things like networking as well. I know somebody who wrote a really good book about networking. So
do you?
Yeah.
I'd love to know more about that. So
review, a 5-star review.
Thank you. Yeah, and I love that you said that about the personal, because I was going to ask, where's the limit of a personal brand? Because I know from conversations I have with business owners who are going on social media, they've been told you need to get personal, and they're like, but I don't want to talk about my breakfast and the kids or whatever, because they're thinking of what they see on like their friends' social media posts and that level personal. But it's not that, as you say, it's about revealing aspects of your character, what you care about, who you are, and that essence, and being intentional about that. So it doesn't need to be like personal, and you can choose. I mean, some people obviously are quite comfortable and want to share that, but what makes sense for that impression that you're trying to leave with people. On my podcast a few episodes ago, I was talking about the power of belief, and that part of your role of your marketing and your messaging is to build that belief for your ideal client that you are the right person, that you have the right offer, that you're the right personality, you have the right sort of process and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that starts with you. You have to believe that first. Otherwise, it's never going to come across and be believable. So how does this process help with the mindset side of things? Because we can polish up someone and make them look really incredible, but if they don't feel, if they can't really live into that, it's not going to come across as congruent. So does the vision process already help with that process, or is there something that people need to think about in order to step into this beautiful brand intentionally?
So I hadn't finished the O and the N. So the O will give you basically personal brand guidelines. So like having your business brand guidelines, you'll have your personal brand guidelines written for you. And that's part of the process, the new process for the personal brand. And then the N is nurture. So it's kind of an ongoing coaching accountability to make sure, because yes, I can rebrand a business in a day, but then you still have to apply it. And so I can do the strategy day with someone and kind of get all these things in place, but then they need to apply it. And this time it's more about them, and the personal change has to come from within them. So there's an element of coaching and support and accountability that comes with that, which I have kind of built into my process as well. And there's a longer tail on that, because that does take a lot of change from the inside as well. So you can start to believe it as you start to see those changes happening.
Yeah. And as we talked about earlier, as you evolve and learn more about yourself and become bolder, your brand evolves. And so I love that people have that nurture process to really live into their brand step by step. And how I came to become a Value Whisperer was very much that kind of process. It was really fun to take what I know works for companies and apply that to smaller service-based businesses. And it's, so much fun. I'm still loving it. But it's interesting to see how you evolve. And often what we've learned in one aspect of life, we can apply somewhere else. But sometimes we need someone else to kind of point out that, well, you can use that over here. Oh, I'd never even thought about it before.
No, you get caught in your own kind of, this is what I do. And I've built a very strong brand around, yes, I brand businesses and I do this one day thing, and that's what I do. And I get results for clients really fast. And people kind of go, yeah, but can you do this thing? You can do this thing though, can't you? And I was a bit like, oh gosh. And yeah, four conversations later, and I was like, oh, maybe I should do it. And then I put a post on LinkedIn saying, what should I give a talk on? And 48% of people voted for personal brand. There was 4 options, and personal brand I kind of put in as a little bit of an outlier. And I thought, oh, maybe there's something in this then. So that's what I've been, it's kind of like, well, I'm going with what the universe is telling me, that there is obviously a need for it. It's something that I know quite a bit about, and I've done it myself. So yes, I can show other people to do this too. But yeah, it took other people to point it out.
So when you have a personal brand, do you need a logo and a color palette and all of that in the same way as a business brand? Or is it kind of, because I'm thinking you used the example of Richard Branson, and I was trying to think, well, what's his visual brand? And then I was like, all I can think about is him. He is the visual brand, and the way he shows up, or the way he shows up on camera, because when the cameras are off, he's quite quiet because he is an introvert. But, on camera, he's like, yay, hi. And that's the visual part. But is that the same for everybody, or do you benefit from a logo? Or I guess perhaps it depends what you want to do with it.
Again, it depends what you want to do with it. For Richard Branson, he's the figurehead of all these different Virgin. The Virgin logo is the brand, isn't it? And he's the figurehead of that. Same with Elon Musk and Tesla. Same with kind of Steve Jobs, as was with Apple. The company was kind of the logo. It depends, because a lot of creatives, for example, so if you think of like fashion designers like Stella McCartney, the name is the label, and then a logo is created for her name. So it depends what your company is going to be called as to whether it's worthwhile doing that, or whether you just show up as the figurehead of a company. Again, there is no correct answer. It depends on your end vision and your end goal. Obviously, a company that doesn't bear your name may be easier to exit, although Stella McCartney has managed to do that anyway. It might be easier to exit a company if it has its own company name as well. So that's another thing to bear in mind. But there was lots of things that we kind of go into when making that decision at the beginning.
Yeah. And it's not impossible to sell a personal brand, I guess.
No.
Robbins has done it as well, hasn't he?
Exactly. It can be done. Yeah.
So you've touched on the case, and you certainly went more into it in your previous episode on the business brand. What's the case for a personal brand? Why do we need that? Does it help our business? Is it just something that is a bit of an ego boost? Why do we need to think about this?
Well, you've actually got a personal brand, whether you think about it or not. That's the thing, because a personal brand is what people think of you, and what your reputation is and what you stand for, and people are going to make their own minds up about that unless you intentionally shape those views, just like with a business brand. So it's about being mindful and intentional about how you show up. It's about being mindful and intentional about the messages you put out there, because that reflects on how people are going to remember you. And it's, what do you want to be remembered for? What do you want to be recommended for? So personal brand is important, and it doesn't matter whether you do something about it or not. You've got one anyway. So wouldn't you like to be able to be in control of that? Or would you just want to leave that to the lap of the gods? That's kind of the point of it.
And what are your thoughts or advice on building a personal brand if you are someone who has a quiet personality, that you don't love being the center of attention? Does it still make sense to have a personal brand? Is there space for those of us that are a bit shyer or more introverted to have a personal brand as well?
Absolutely. I mean, you've done it really well, Melitta. The Shy Girl's Guide to Networking, to reference your lovely book again, you went straight in on that. And you don't have to be extrovert to be visible. But if you're not visible, no one can buy from you if you're not visible. If they can't see you, they can't buy. So I get it, because I am actually quite a private person, even though I was on your podcast talking about my breast cancer about 18 months ago, but that was for different reasons. I am actually quite a private person. And when I started my business, I was like, can't the work just speak for itself? I had a business name, and I wanted to be behind all of that. It was only when my book came out, in fact, when I was writing my book, I was talking to Lucy, my publisher, about putting a white male's name on the book, because I didn't want to put my head above the parapet. I just thought maybe it'll do better if it's actually it's like your book's your child, right? And you want to give your child the best start in life. And I thought, well, maybe we'll put a male name on there, because it's been proven that books with male and Caucasian names do better, right? And I've got a very obviously foreign name. So I thought, well, maybe it will get better reviews. And, and Lucy talked me out of it. And then my social media lady said, well, you do realise that now you've written a book called Let's Get Visible, you're going to have to get visible, don't you? And I was just like, oh God. So my own visibility journey only started in 2020. And then I've had 18 months out because of my cancer journey. So I've had a very short period of being visible myself. So I get it, but you can just start small. Just start small. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't have to be on every platform. There are lots of gurus out there who will tell you need to be on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook, and it's just overwhelming. And people will stop, and it stops them getting visible at all, because they don't know where to go. So my own journey now that I'm coming back from the 18-month break is, and I used to have someone doing all of that for me. And I was paying them quite a lot per month to do all that for me, take it off me, because I don't really like social media. But having come back, I need to do it myself. I just chose one platform. I just chose LinkedIn. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go all in on LinkedIn. I shut off my company Instagram account with a little poem. And I said, Instagram is not our jam. We're going all in on LinkedIn. Thank you for your support. And the relief that just came with that. The other thing is about appearing on camera. And we're told that, being on video is going to help build your know, like, and trust, which it is. for me, doing things like this, thank you for having me, is a really comfortable way for me to be on camera, because I'm talking to someone else and it's not only about me. We're having a conversation. That makes it easier. I also did a little thing when I was really so nervous about being on video, and I hate talking to camera when there's no one else there, is I had a little WhatsApp group with a couple of other entrepreneur friends, and we'd send each other little videos of ourselves and then just kind of, encourage ourselves and go, yeah, you're getting a bit more confident in that. Then I built a Facebook group. This was pre-cancer. I built a Facebook group, which obviously people joined only, like Boss Your Brand, only if they wanted to hear more from me about building their brand. So it was a safe place for me to appear on video, because it was only my fans who were going to see it. And so they were only anything but they were just encouraging. So it was a closed space, so you can show up and do little things like that and post selfies. If you don't feel like being on video, just go, just push it a little bit and but every time I showed my face, I knew I got more interactions, more likes, more, it's kind of like people connect with people. And as soon as you see a face on a post, it's much more likely to make you stop the scroll. Do you know how much we're scrolling now, Melitta?
Oh, you gave a brilliant statistic last time, and I'm assuming it's gone up even more.
So it used to be
Wasn't
that
it
we
Big
scroll.
Ben before?
It was the height of Big Ben every day, right? It's the height of Mount Everest now, every 20 days. Your little thumb is more athletic than you give it credit for, because it's climbing the height of Everest every 20 days. Now that's a lot of stuff that we're looking at online. How do we stop that scroll? Well, having a resting brand is part of it, but also faces. We're just naturally inclined to stop when we see a face, and a face we recognize and a face we want to know more from. So getting visible is so important. But start small, start on one platform, do a selfie, maybe build up to a little video.
Yeah. Brilliant advice. And that's how I started. So I started on my Facebook group doing videos, interviewing other people. And then bit by bit, I have these little business tips that I put out on Twitter like several times a day. And so I thought, I could just speak those. They're really little. So I did a whole load of those over a period of a few days and stuck them out on YouTube. And I just built up bit by bit. But yeah, like you, I've noticed that if it's a picture of me or my view or my dog, they always get the most.
You've got the dog advantage, yes.
Yeah. And also, when I sort of rebranded and reframed the podcast a little bit at the beginning of this year, I am doing an interview and in one of my episodes, because it still feels a bit weird or nerve-wracking doing an episode all by myself. But when I've done it in the past, those were the episodes that get the most views. Those are the ones that people comment on the most. Those are the ones that people come and talk to me about.
That's really interesting.
So I was like, I have to push myself to do more of those. So I gave myself this, like, every other week I'll go live, make it a bit easier, but also to have that rhythm. And what has really helped me with my personal brand, being someone that's a bit quieter, is that it helps me remember it's not about me. Yes. It's about, as you said, it gives you meaning. It builds that connection. The reason I started my business was to help people stop feeling so stuck and overwhelmed with their marketing and how do I get clients and sales. Oh my gosh, I want to stick my head in the sand, because they were missing the point. And if I don't stand up for that, if I don't communicate that on a regular basis, if I'm not there and visible, they stay stuck. They fall prey to these coaches that you were just saying that say, be on every platform. I'm working on a podcast episode all about all the rubbish that people tell you about social media, because I've heard just so much bad advice that people have been given, which stops them. They're like, well, I don't want to do it that way. It doesn't make sense. I don't like crippling. It.
Yeah. Better to do one thing and do it well, rather than just like be so overwhelmed.
Yes.
With like everything and just kind of go, I just can't even face it. And so just start small. Just start, really.
Exactly. And when you have that personal brand, you know who you are, what you want to represent and stand for, as you were saying, then the social media part becomes much easier. And when people say, oh, do it this way, and it doesn't align with that brand, you feel more confident to say, no, I want to do it this way.
Yeah.
And because there is no right and wrong, only your way. And we're all learning and growing and developing and trying and experimenting the whole time. I really
And
encourage everyone to think of marketing as more of an experiment than a kind of duty, because it's more fun that way.
we make a mistake, as long as you're not saying anything really awful, kind of racist or sexist or anything like that. If you just make a mistake, if we're talking like typos or we get a fact wrong, it's fine, because you know what? In 20 days, it's the height of Mount Everest behind you. It's kind of like the equivalent of yesterday's newspaper is today's chip shop wrappers. People scroll and they forget very quickly. So just consistently showing up is the thing that is going to help build your personal brand, because again, you can't just post and run and not be there for a while, because of that scroll, but things move really fast. So don't overthink it. Just do a small post and a little post with a little tip, and then do it regularly and try and show up at the same time on the same days if you can. You don't have to post every day on LinkedIn either. You could do a post every, I committed to 3 posts a week, which fit quite nicely into that content cake. And then if I'm feeling inspired to post more, I can, but I've made a commitment to do 3 times a week, and that's fine. Takes the pressure off. A lot of those articles and posts on LinkedIn have quite a long shelf life, don't they? Because when people comment on it, it keeps it going. So it works quite nicely on LinkedIn for that.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed, I've got a new comment. And then you realize, oh no, that I posted that like 5 months ago and it still gets picked up, which is nice. I think people can backtrack and find things. The other thing that helped me was, particularly given my target market, which are people that are kind of newer into business in their first sort of 5 years, was that if I mess up, if I get it wrong, if I do things badly, then they're going to think, well, if she can get there and be that bad, I can definitely do this. So I kind of think of my mistakes and my mess ups as a service.
Well, it humanizes everything. Again, it's about that personal connection. It's weird that when I talked about my cancer, and I didn't do an awful lot of that on LinkedIn, and in hindsight, maybe I should have done more if I was really thinking about my personal brand, but I was actually thinking about surviving back then. But it humanizes you, and people, if they thought that I was, this, best-selling author, it's like, oh no, she's just like me. We all get ill, we all have bad days, we all have, and it kind of, again, it's that emotional connection. The amount of people that connected with me through my cancer journey, and they might not have found me if I hadn't talked about that, but now they're following my journey and they're coming to my personal brand workshops and interested in working with me, and that's kind of a long tail. But it all layers, isn't it? It's like getting to know someone. Sharing your personal brand and building your personal brand is just getting to know people, or for people to be able to get to know you.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're too perfect, you kind of build a wall between you and your clients, particularly if you have a smaller business. The whole big marketing advantage that we have is that we're close to our customers. So when they feel more connected to us, more aligned with our values, they understand where we're coming from, and they believe in us and we believe in them, then it becomes this magical journey. So yeah, brilliant. Such great advice, Sapna. I think we've covered so much in a very short space of time, given lots of food for thought. Is there anything you think that we haven't covered?
Oh, no. I'm looking at my second page of notes that I didn't even look at, and we've covered literally everything on there. But I would say, just if you're thinking about whether you should build your personal brand, you've already got a personal brand, so it's about being intentional about it. So you kind of do need to think about it, whether you want to or not. Do remember that people can't buy what they can't see. So if you have a business, you need to get visible. And whether that's your business brand, your personal brand, or both, ideally both, then that's really, really important as well. And if you need any help with that, you know where to come.
And one other thing that just came to my mind is, one thing that I know people get quite stressed about is showing up consistently. And I've made the point that, as you said, it's great if you can be consistent, if you can post 3 days a week, always the same times, but it's not always possible. And sometimes, like, my hand is definitely up for this, we forget. I realized
Life
recently,
happens. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I hadn't posted on LinkedIn for 2 weeks. I completely forgot about it because I was wrapped up in other things. And I was like, oh my gosh, but people's still there. It's fine. But for me, I believe that consistency isn't necessarily about the amount that you post, but being consistent in the way you show up
In the way you show
and
up.
your messaging. And I think your personal brand is such a strong advantage in that respect. And as I said, it can help remind you how you want to show up. So that consistency part becomes much easier. And then that also builds the know, like, and trust, because if you're showing up and in a slightly different way all the time, you come across as a bit schizophrenic. So
Yeah.
I think having that solid base, and it's not just about getting clients, it is about intentionally standing for something and making your life easier, because you don't have to think, oh, what do I say? How do I say it? You already have that, that. So it builds the confidence and everything as well. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing for everyone to explore. And it does make everything else connect in your business, I think, too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because you are, as I say, the figurehead of your business. And so if you're showing up consistently and clearly, then that's going to have great knock-on effects for the rest of your business as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe that you were offering listeners, if they are curious to know how they show up to the outside world, a brand consultation that they could book. Do you want to tell them a little bit more about that?
Absolutely, yes. So I'm giving away free 30-minute brand consultation, bit of an audit on your personal brand or your business brand, if that's what you prefer. But really today was all about personal brand. So if you want to book in with me, and I've given you the links for that, it's a bit.ly link with Get Me Visible. Book in with me, and then we can hit the ground running. If you want me to give you a professional eye over how you're showing up on socials and ask me anything about personal brand, that would be great.
Yeah. And in case you missed it earlier, if you like my branding, that's what Sapna did. She did all of my branding for me. And I can really vouch for that nurture process, because as you're saying, it's not just doing the brand, it's applying it consistently. And you've helped me so much as like, oh, I've got this idea, I'm going to do a summit. Sapna, what do I do?
Well, that's the thing. I offer that as a, like, you've got support from me for life for the nurture bit. And so many clients don't use it. Melitta, you're one of the best clients for actually coming back and going, am I on brand? And you've absolutely, your brand looks fantastic wherever it shows up. So really proud of you.
Well, thank you. So I'll put those links in the chat, and I guess the best place for them to come and chat with you and connect is LinkedIn, by the sounds of it. Is it just Sapna Pieroux?
Yes. If you message me on Instagram, you might not get a response for several weeks. So LinkedIn is where I'm generally living at the moment. So yes.
Brilliant. I'll put those links. I'll also link up to your previous episode and the cancer episode as well, which was your idea. And then we brought in some other coaches and a doctor, and it was just the most wonderful panel interview. I thought it was going to be very difficult, very emotional, but it wasn't. It was so much fun and really empowering.
I'm still friends with Dr. Cecilia, she lives locally, and we've met up and gone to art galleries and gone for coffee and everything. So yeah,
that's so great. Brilliant. Well, Sapna, thank you again for joining us and being once more so generous with all of your knowledge and inspiring us all to go out and intentionally build our personal brand.
Thank you very much for having me again.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you have found this episode valuable, and now you know the difference between a company brand and a personal brand and when each works best. I hope that you're going to feel more confident going forward and really allowing your value to come through your branding and everything that you do. If you have enjoyed this episode, please do take a minute to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people to find the show and benefit from the amazing wisdom all of my guests share. And again, I would love for you to come and join us at the Dream Clients Club, where we have regular live marketing masterclasses, challenges, and right now you can take part in Summit Business School as well. You can find all the details at melittacampbell.com/club. There are a lot more tools, tips, and insights coming up for you in the next episode, so don't miss next week's show, or better still, subscribe now so you never miss your weekly dose of inspiration. I'm Melitta Campbell, your business coach and value whisperer, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.